If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
All right, so we are now going to begin the LNC Vice Chair debate. And again, remember the silent auction where you go silently bid on things. You do not noisily bid on things. The noise comes from over here. So let's begin with 1 minute introductions of the three candidates. We have Alex Merced, Joe Hauptman, and Steve Sheets. And I'm actually going to pull this down and hopefully it reaches all the way down to Steve.
Okay then. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Sheets. I'm the former Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania chair, and I've been active in the party for a long time now. My first petition drive was in 1994, and I've just been tired of the two big parties, man. It's what we do right here in this room is we want to make the world a better place for us having been here. And that's our primary goal. And as vice chair, I'm looking to have a clear, concise, consistent professional message and basically help all of our candidates develop their own clear, concise, consistent professional message that pushes the ideas of freedom, the ideas that people should be in charge of their own lives, and the idea that we can do so much better than somebody in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Can I try just using my teacher's voice? Is this working? Okay. My name's Joe Hauptman. I've been a party activist since 1979 when I called Ed Crane and said, "Who's running the petition drive in Indiana?" And he said, "Funny you should ask." And then I said, "Who's the state chair?" And he said, "Funny you should ask." So I have been state chair of Indiana 3 times, 79, 98, and 2015. I've served on the national committee. I have served on the platform committee. I have run for local office. I have run for state rep. I have run for superintendent of public instruction. I still, regrettably in my mind, hold the record for a 3-way U.S. congressional race against a Republican and Democrat with 11.4% as the Libertarian. I still came in third after a gay cross-dressing felon who was the Democratic nominee. And as I used to tell my students, if more people wanted him to represent them in Congress than me, there's nothing a 9th grader is going to do to affect my ego.
Mr. Merced, 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Merced, and I'm running for vice chair. And I know the basic job description of vice chair is to support the chair, but I think with the right attitude, it can do so much more. One of the things that I'm really focused on is not just outreach and helping build the party from the outside, but also inreach and building morale and trying to keep everybody on the same page and bring people together. So I want to be that visible chair that helps encourage people by highlighting the successes of great candidate work, great affiliate work across the country. Also by making sure that sometimes when we make mistakes, because sometimes we do, like I carry on this notebook, never a failure, always a lesson, okay? That we learn from those lessons in a productive and constructive way. I just want to be sort of that positive force to keep everyone focused on work. And then on the LNC, I always want to be part of that conversation, making sure that you guys get the support you need, whether it's ballot access, press support, tech support. I'm a big believer in the CRM project. If you haven't gone to lp.org/CRM to learn more about the CRM project, I highly recommend that you do. And regardless of what happens in New Orleans, I am very positive I'm very optimistic about the path forward for the party. And thank you.
So questions are coming from the box O questions. I have not looked at any of these. So we're going to start with Mr. Merced. How will you help advance the goals of the Libertarian Party, i.e. to create better messaging to reach individual voters on the margins?
Okay, bottom line is that messaging should be determined by each candidate. Each candidate should determine what their message is, because who best knows how to talk to a New Hampshire voter? New Hampshire people. Who knows how best to talk to a Massachusetts voter? Massachusetts candidates and Massachusetts people. Okay, what I want to do is make sure that your voice is loud and can be heard. Why? Through press support, by getting on the ballot, and then also by forming other information, other resources. So again, like the CRM project, also right now I'm in the process of working with the other LNC members to form an outreach committee. The goal of this outreach committee is just to kind of identify target groups that would be sort of ripe for building relationships with the Libertarian Party, and identifying people who are already in the party, who are already reaching out to them and doing great work in that outreach, so that way you know who they are and you can reach out to them and say, hey, just so you know, I'm running this campaign, I'd like to reach out to this community, can you give me any advice? Because there's a lot of great resources with the party. I've met a lot of people with great skills, and if I can facilitate people knowing who can do what, we can all be much greater together. So I want to be a facilitator for us to do greater work.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, same question.
I would bring my experience. One of the things I found, this is my 7th state convention, is a lot of states basically have felt neglected. I went to one state, I wasn't even allowed to talk. I basically got to schmooze and wave hi. And I had delegates come up to me and say, I'm going to vote for you because you're the only one who's ever shown up here. I think it's important that we remind our people that politics isn't just local, politics is personal. You have to actually talk to people, and that includes our own people. I'd like to work at letting people find what works for them. In Indiana, different counties have different things. One county's adopted a highway. Another county has second of the month Second Amendment, where they get together and at a shooting range, okay, and basically shoot guns. And another county basically gets together for pizza.
Mr. Sheets, same question.
Communication is a big deal. You know, libertarians have always had a difficult time getting in front of the camera and saying what needs to be said. And generally speaking, it's because the camera's almost never on us, right? So part of the big deal is trying to get our message honed, our message crafted. And as vice chair, my idea is to get a lot of people together from a lot of different states and cross-pollinate, give our ideas to each other, and come up with the best solution that works for us. You know, again, we want to have something that's professional. We don't want to have a lot of gaffes when we're making comments. We want people to be saying things that are poignant, that are necessary to be said. And we can do this together as a group. And it should be coming from the LNC. It should be coming from each and every one of you and all these organizations. It's our job to facilitate that communication.
Thank you. Next question from the Box O questions. And we'll start with Mr. Hoffman and then go to Mr. Sheets. That way we're alternating the order. How can we entice big corporations to New Hampshire?
To New Hampshire?
That's what it says. I don't know if that's something that... let me ask this. Do any of you feel comfortable answering that question?
It's not germane to the party.
Agreed. Next question. How specifically will you support candidates, and what level candidate will you best help promote? Mr. Hoffman, 1 minute.
I will support any candidate that wants my help. I will also not butt in on candidate who doesn't want me. I have worked on all levels. I worked on the Ed Clark campaign. I worked on the Gary Johnson campaign. I have run petition drives. I have run statewide. I think libertarians do best on the legislative, but quite frankly, we win at the local level. Now, you're an unusual place. Your state reps have smaller districts than your local races. But for most of the country, it's the other way around. I think that the top jobs, if they want my advice, should go to old farts like me who don't have much chance to win, and it's not going to affect us. On the other hand, if you want people winning, we want the young people down at the lower levels so that they can build a political resume of success, so that when it comes time to run for the higher level jobs, non-libertarians will look at them and say, this person is qualified.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Sheets?
We all need to be helping our candidates, you know, and whether that means helping them specifically in ballot challenges, whether that means helping them go door-to-door campaigning, helping them by working the polls. We all need to be working. as LNC, it's our job to promote ballot access across the nation. Myself personally, I'm going to be working with the local candidates in Pennsylvania because, well, that's where I'm from. But as far as that goes, anybody here who wants my help or has any questions, obviously my phone number will be posted everywhere, my email will be posted everywhere, my Facebook page is posted everywhere. By all means, ask the question, I'm helping.
Thank you. Mr. Merced?
Same. If anyone ever wants help, they can just reach out to me. And I provide people, over the years, I've provided help with people making their logos, helping make graphics, helping make websites. In New York, I spend a lot of time petitioning for candidates. So I'm more than glad to provide that resource. But the thing is that I can be a megaphone for candidates that are doing great work. I have a pretty decent social media presence, and I try to do my best to highlight candidates from all across the country so that way people can see the good work. Because when you see candidates from all across the country, it doesn't just help highlight and help raise money for candidates, but also brings us closer together because we're seeing all the work that's being done, and we're all like cheering everybody on. So I want to be, and then the idea is to be a bigger megaphone for us to all see how we're all working. And that's kind of how I want to support. Of course, being on the LNC, I want to be making sure that we get help. States that need ballot access help are going to get the help that they need because that's paramount. Because if we're not on the ballot, then everything else is kind of for naught. And then also making sure that we build relationships with the press so that way your candidates can get more and more media attention and again tech support.
Thank you, Mr. Merced. The next question, there is no time limit. It's a fill in the blank. Let's begin with Mr. Sheets. Fill in the blank. Taxation is
Theft.
Mr. Merced.
Theft.
Mr. Hoffman.
Theft.
Mr. Merced, what do you intend to do, if anything, about libertarians who advocate non-libertarian ideals such as universal basic income?
Okay, so the bottom line is this. From a national perspective, you don't have the power to remove individual members of the party. But what you can do, if someone is saying non-libertarian ideas, you can say libertarian ideas louder and more effectively and more persuasively. So I'm going to constantly advocate for bold libertarian ideas in ways that I find are the most broadly accessible so that we can get people to bolder and bolder libertarian ideas and greater. So that way people realize what the Libertarian Party is about. People have seen the memes that I put out there regarding the party of this, the party of that, or this is what libertarians believe. Because I want to make sure I'm very clear about what libertarians believe. But I'm not going to, instead of casting attention to somebody else who I may disagree with by pointing out that I disagree with them, which just gives them attention, I'm going to try to be the loudest voice for good libertarian ideas as possible and focus on encouraging and highlighting great libertarian candidates and great libertarian things. Because I always think a positive encouragement and highlighting great ideas is better than just spending your time judging bad ideas.
Thank you. Mr. Sheets.
Yes, absolutely agreed. There's really no point in trashing somebody from another state that basically has no bearing on the LNC at all. What we need to be doing is focusing on our ideas. We have a statement of principles, and we promote those ideas loudly and boldly, and in whatever way we possibly can. And at some point, those people who are promoting ideas that are not libertarian will find the door themselves, man. They will look at our statement of principles and say, we don't really necessarily belong here.
Mr. Hoffman?
For the most part, I've found the best way to deal with them is ignore them. As he said, they tend to find the door on their own. I don't see any point in giving them extra press. When somebody says something on We Do, which has about 8 people on it as near as I can tell, I don't then repost it on Facebook in a group that has 2,100 or 21,000 members. Okay? I do not consider that the best way to deal with it. I also have no problem saying, he doesn't speak for me. In Indiana, there have been times when we've actually passed resolutions saying, you know, the national platform says that. Fine, we don't. We are not a lockstep party. We have a general idea. Government should be less. Some think it should be so much less that it doesn't exist. But we all agree it wants to be less. Okay, we're going to disagree on how much less. Okay, if you don't like a candidate's position, go find someone else to work for.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, we will begin with you on the next question. It says, what is your goal or thoughts regarding property tax?
Oy. Again, quite frankly, it's a state issue. In Indiana, we've messed with it a lot. It's used, we've got a 1%, 2%, 3% system. Libertarian Party in Indiana, and I agree, has always been opposed to a property tax. I'm opposed to a property tax, but I don't think what they should do, what they did in Michigan is basically the Senate, the representatives abolished property taxes, and the governor says, fine, I'm going out at the end of this session, screw them, I sign it. And there was nothing put in its place. And suddenly the next school year started and there was no money for anything. I'm sorry, I believe we have to deal with the realities of the world. And if we're going to replace property tax, then we have to have a way as to how the government is going to deal, hopefully much smaller, but is going to have to deal with that reality.
Thank you. Mr. Sheets, same question.
Property theft. I mean, this is something that we're all against, right? The question, I guess, would be how we remove property theft from our lives. And like Joe said, there are certain realities that we have to deal with if we back ourselves out of this position of tyranny. The idea is to create an atmosphere where we have less tyranny, where we have less theft, until we have so much less theft that we have zero theft. That's the goal. That's the goal of the Libertarian Party, right? To have minimum government until it's so minimum you can't discern it. As far as being vice chair goes, my job is basically to help candidates with that message, help get that message out, period. You know, there really is nothing more to say about it than we want it gone.
And Mr. Merced.
Okay, bottom line, taxation is theft. But the bottom line is, as a vice chair, what I want to do is, again, like you were saying, empower people to be able to get that message out there by just being a voice for that message, a voice for the message for what taxes, the effect that it has on your life. That basically, the more you tax, whether it's property tax, sales tax, wage tax, you name a tax, the more you tax, the less money that you get to keep out of your paycheck. And when also with all the regulations that are increasing the cost of living, whether it's housing, education, healthcare, etc., basically you're keeping less and less and less, and that means you have to work longer hours. That's less time you can spend with your family, less time you can spend in your community, less you can donate. When people really can see the effect that it's happening on society, when government crowds out your income, people start to see the libertarian message, and that's the message I want to make sure we all get out there.
Thank you. The next question, and I really am curious who put this one in here. Feel free to answer or not. Would you rather fight one horse-sized Arvin-Vora or 1,000 duck-sized Arvin-Vora? Mr. Merced.
I'm against violence, so I don't fight any Arvin-Voras.
And I believe he's also a pacifist, so he would not be doing the attacking.
So it would work.
Mr. Sheets? Ducks or horse?
Again, fighting. Seriously, we're going to fight? No, we're not going to fight. We're going to talk out our differences and call it a day. At the end of it, when we all go to New Orleans, it's going to be an awesome libertarian love fest. And there's no question about it. After 2016, that is my impression of what a national convention is all about. And Arvin-Vora, he's not a bad dude, and yet he does some really terrible messaging. I think we all, for the most part, can agree that that messaging needs to be changed.
So, horse size or duck size?
It doesn't matter to me. Let's just change the message and make it go and make it better.
Oh, horse or duck?
I'm old enough to remember an old saying, nibbled to death by ducks. So I'm probably going to have to go with the horse.
Thank you, and we actually do have a serious question to end on before I let you have closing remarks, and we'll begin with Steve Sheets. What would you do to reach out to small L libertarians to convince or show them that the Libertarian Party is a positive organization within the broader liberty movement?
We do this all the time. When one of our candidates became auditor, she was challenged by the Republican Party. It was a non-contested race. But when we went and we fought that in court and we were able to get more signatures to help her get on the ballot, we had small L libertarians. We had anarchists, we had minarchists, we had classical liberals. We were all working together, and we all had one goal: to get a libertarian elected. And that libertarian was somebody who's going to be an auditor for a township. The whole point of having libertarians being auditors is we are an independent set of eyes, man. And we're going to change the way things go when we win these smaller offices. You want to convince a small L libertarian? Put in the work. Put in the work on the campaign. Put in the work as a candidate. Get them into office. They will become a believer and they will become a large L libertarian.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman.
I would say that we have to stop having people come in and having certain members of our party go, unclean, unclean. All right. Okay. David Berglund, okay, back in the 80s did a study, and just recently in Indiana, We Are Libertarians did a poll of their own people. Just quickly, how many of you know the Myers-Briggs test? Okay. How many of you are NTs? Okay. How many of you aren't? Okay, that's a higher percentage than most. Okay, NTs make up 10% of the population. They make up 80% of the Libertarian Party. Okay, folks, if we convince only people who think like us, we're going to lose.
Agreed.
We have to start learning to talk to people and welcoming people who aren't going to be won over by these long, logical debates. We can't spend our time saying we have to know every single issue, be able to quote Mies, be able to quote Rothbard. I'm sorry, I'm old enough, I knew Rothbard, he was an asshole. Okay?
Mr. Merced.
Okay, so this is why I often like to talk about in-reach. So not just about reaching out, but reaching in and bringing in the environment with the party where it's much, because bottom line is the things that keep people in and keep people involved are two things. One, that they feel like they have something to do and something to work towards. So making sure people know what candidates need help and whatnot. So I want to make sure I'm very, very out there basically saying, hey, this candidate over here in this state needs this kind of volunteer, this kind of volunteer. So that way everyone's finding work to do. So that way they stay involved. But also creating an environment and encouraging and saying nice things about great work that's being done. So that way people feel like there's a great environment to be part of. You create that positive environment, you create that work to do. People will stick around and people will feel great about it.
Thank you. And let's end with, we'll do 90 seconds for closing statements. And I forget which side we started on. So, Joe, I will let you decide who goes first. Alex.
Okay.
90 seconds.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Again, Alex Merced. And again, thank you guys so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure. And every time I go to one of these conventions, I just fall in love with the Libertarian Party all over again because I get to see the great work, the great candidates that everyone's doing. And that's awesome. And bottom line, regardless of what happens in New Orleans, if any of these guys, any of us, are the vice chair, the party's in good hands. But again, to me, what's the most important thing is the healing process that happens the next day after. Okay, there's been a lot of divisions, a lot of fights that we have, as a party have had, but going forward, after that day after, we have a lot of candidates that are going to need our help, our support, and whatever it takes to build those bridges, to mend those wounds, in whatever role I'm in at that point. That's what I'm going to be working on, because I want us together. I want us to go win. I want us to go get that libertarian message out there. I want us to save lives, because we are losing lives in the drug war. We are losing lives in wars intervene. People are struggling to put food on the table for their families because of higher taxes, because of higher cost of living regulation. And the more we're disunited, the less we're helping those people. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure we're helping those people together.
And Mr. Merced, I will let you pick who goes next.
Joe.
Joe, 90 seconds.
Okay. I would say that he's correct in that I think we have a lot of good candidates running. We have to remember that regardless of how the convention goes, and I'll be honest, I've been going to these since the 1980s. I was at the convention when David Berglund was nominated for president by beating none of the above by 1 vote. All right? I do not expect a love fest, okay? And quite frankly, sometimes it's not hurting cats, it's hurting badgers. Okay, but afterwards, after we're done, we have to work together because it's not about us, it's about freeing up our country. If all I worried about was the Libertarian Party, I wouldn't bother traveling around the country. I'm worried about our nation. Okay, I'm worried about the people out there who don't even know what's happening to them. The young people who don't even remember the freedoms we've lost because they've never experienced them. There will be young voters going into this election who have never lived when the U.S. wasn't at war. And we are the only anti-war party left standing. Okay? It is too important for us to spend all of our time fighting among ourselves. So all I can say is when we get to NOLA, if your side loses, don't leave. Whenever somebody insults you and your response is, I'm getting out of here, they've won.
Thank you, Joe. Process of elimination means that Steve Sheets, you have the final word.
Our biggest fight is against tyranny. You know, Joe and Alex, they're both right. You know, we're not here to fight each other. And when I said, you know, Orlando was a libertarian love fest, it was. There were times there where you saw photographs with people who were holding signs for Peterson, McAfee, Perry, and even Johnson, and we were all crowded together with all these signs, and we were not fighting each other. You know, we were working together. And one of those events was when we actually created the death penalty plank, and we had 85% of that room in agreement that we needed that particular death penalty plank put forward by Whitney Bellel. And I thought that was really awesome. You don't get libertarians to agree 85% on much of anything. You know, seriously. But yet there we were. And that was just a hint of what we can possibly accomplish. You know, Joe's right. We need to come together. If your side loses, if something happens that irritates you, don't drop your ball. Don't take your ball home. Work together. We need to come together as a group. We need to make things happen as a group. Because if we don't come together as a group and we don't make things happen, you know what's going to happen? Nothing. And I'm about tired of seeing nothing happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Give all of the candidates a big round of applause. And I want to personally thank each of you for taking time out of your schedule to travel here. I know Steve and Alex, you both traveled several hours in a car from like Pennsylvania, New York. Joe, I'm guessing you flew.
Oh yeah.
Might have been, I don't really know. But again, they're putting in a lot of work. And again, thank you all for coming out. And speaking of thank yous, want to once again thank the sponsors. The bronze sponsors are Joe Hauptman for, and I've pronounced it different ways like every time I've said it.
That's what my students used to call me, Mr. H.
Mr. Joe, who's running for LNC Vice Chair, the Omaha Unconference, the Secular Coalition for America. The silver sponsors are Liberty Body LLC and freekeen.com. And the gold sponsors, Justin O'Donnell for Congress, Gilletta Jarvis for NH, Darlene Lester and Kenny Kelly, and Caleb and Mitch Dyer. And also want to thank everybody that donated things to go in the convention bags that you have. There were some last minute additions that are not listed in the brochure here. Bitcoin.com, Free Press Publications, LRN.FM, Free Talk Live, might be some other things that I'm forgetting that are in your bag. I've not even had a chance to look inside of mine. Silent auction donors, and Justin, if you could start gathering the silent auction sheets, and I will announce the winners of those in just a moment, which means that, you know, if you want to bid, you should do what Brian is doing and run over there very quickly. The Free State Bitcoin Shop, Route 101 Local Goods, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, Robert Lombardo, Tanya Butler, and then there are probably others that I cannot think of that have thrown stuff in at the last minute.
Resist the Empire podcast.
Resist the Empire podcast. If you like the Star Trek Wars, you might want to give that a listen. Thank Ian Freeman for filming, and most of all, thank the convention committee chaired by Justin Zillard for all of the work done on this. The members of that committee are Justin, Daryl Perry, myself, Tanya Butler, Tom Kershaw, and Linda Keene. So if you donated anything, please stand up, whether that be time or things for the silent auction. Give all of those standing around the applause. And again,
we'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com.
FreeKeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.